All right, guys, bang, bang. I've got a special treat today. Mr. Caleb Pressley is here. For those of you that do not know Caleb, he is a electric content creator, is how I would describe him. But thanks so much for doing this, man.
No problem. I'm excited. I told you I'm a big fan of yours. Huge fan.
So,
So
Caleb, you grew up in North Carolina or just went to UNC?
I grew up there, born and raised Asheville, North Carolina, which is in the mountains in West North Carolina. And then I went to Carolina for school too. So really the only time I've ever not been in North Carolina is here in New York City.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so let's talk first about UNC football. I grew up a Duke fan, so we'll give you a pass. But what was that like playing football at UNC and kind of that whole experience?
Well, I'll give you a pass because my dad went to Duke. And so we had a little bit of Duke affiliations as I was growing up as well. But
Was he mad when you decided to go to Carolina?
no, he wasn't mad. But I'll tell you this: he put a sticker on his car whenever I went to Carolina to play football, and then the day I graduated, he took a sticker off. The Carolina car, and took a sticker right off. It wasn't. It wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't feeling it.
I
So, but
love
anyway,
that.
yeah, it was a great experience, man. I was there for. I went in under Butch Davis, and he got fired my freshman year before my fresh 3 days before the season started. So I got there in June or July. I spent like a month or two in the summer conditioning program, meeting everyone, all the coaching staff, whatever. And then 3 days before the season starts, he gets fired for, there was just apparently some cheating going on. It turns out he didn't even have anything to do with it, but he got fired. The staff took, his staff was there my freshman year, but then after that, they got fired too. So then I kind of, I don't know what your listeners are into football or not, but I went in basically Butch Davis is a pro style offense, which is a different. I play quarterback. That's a different type of offense for a quarterback. And then we got a new spread style offense after that, which wasn't good for me. I was not I'm not a prototypical spread quarterback. So I had a great time in Carolina. I was a career backup, played in a few games, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
I saw somebody tweeting at us when I asked for questions about you had a very long 2-yard run, they said. So I don't know. I think it was against Idaho or something, which I figured was somebody that you either knew or a Carolina fan that was trying to bust your balls.
No, dude, it was actually historically correct. There's in the college football almanac, it's actually the longest 2-yard run in the history of the game. It
All
was
right, tell us the story.
almost 3 yards. Yeah, no, it was. We were beating, I think, Idaho by I think it was 70-20, and then the coach put me in. I think it was time to take the starters out eventually, and we were running a zone. So like, I'll do another inside football thing, but we're running a run play basically, a zone read. We have an attached tight end. So what you do in a zone read is you read the defensive end. If he crashes on the running back, you pull the ball. Well, if there's an attached tight end, then the tight end will just block that guy that you're supposed to read. And so there really is no ability to read it as a quarterback, and you're supposed to hand it off, let the guy go. So I'm sitting here on the sideline, it's 50-20, 60-20, 70-20. Finally, I would get in. So I was like, I'm pulling the ball. So I basically made up my own play and almost made it 3 yards.
I love that. I joke all the time. I played football at Bucknell University, and in high school, our team was horrible. Like I think we literally went 1-10 for 2 years straight when I was a freshman and sophomore. And so by the time I got to be a senior, we basically were like, look, man, we're either going to have fun out here or we're going to lose all the time. And our best play my senior year was a fake punt. So we basically would get in 4th and long, and then we would run a fake punt. And the coach would only call it, once a game. And finally, towards the end of the season, my friends and I just started saying, look, man, we're going to run that play all the time. And so we would just call it ourselves on the field. And as you can imagine, I'm sure your coach didn't like the fact that you pulled the ball or that we used to run the fake punt. And, they want to run their system. But, hey, that's what happens, right?
Yeah, the fake punt's always good. You get to the point where you're running on 3rd down, though, that's a problem.
Absolutely. All right. And then tell us about this letter that you wrote to the coaches. What is that?
You have to remind me, maybe, dude.
So,
There's a lot of
so,
history there.
so somebody said that you wrote a letter to the coaches that had like some ridiculous all-time quotes in it, but it's no longer available anywhere on the internet.
So this is what they're probably talking about. So I used to have, when I was at Carolina, and this is kind of how I got started at Barstool, and or at least it was the origins of it, was I had a website called calebpressley.com, and I would just, I didn't have any like aspirations to be in media as a profession, but I actually was inspired by this guy named Mark Titus. Some people might know him. He's still around. But when he was at Ohio State, he's a basketball player, and he kept his own website called Club Trillion. And it was hilarious. Like, he was just always – he was a backup to – he's always writing about his interactions with, like, Greg Oden, who was there at the time, and just hilarious website. So I was inspired by him. So I started my own website where I was doing blogs. I was trying to imitate him, basically. It was a copycat. And I was doing a couple videos, and it was all just to make people laugh. And for my friends, really, my family, people who were following me back home in Asheville. And then, of course, there's some Carolina fans who are deep enough in like the message boards and stuff where they find out about it. And so I wrote a lot of stuff on that site, which it hasn't been necessarily deleted. I just stopped paying for it. So I think that like WordPress deleted it. But it's, I mean, I don't know. I probably could renew the subscription and find out what they're talking about. I wrote a lot of things, and just in the interest of remembering it fondly and remembering it like I was a good writer, I just don't want to renew it because I don't even want to see it.
And were you writing things like covering your day-to-day life, or were you writing like open letters to the coaches and things like that while you're playing?
Like literally anything, like open letters to the coaches, like demanding more playing time. I think I wrote one about like I wrote one about thirst. This is about like basically how like horny you guys get during the summer, during college. Like, yeah, I wrote a lot of things, and I'm not even sure how well they would be remembered. That's what I'm saying. So I might just let the sleeping dog lie.
All right, that's fair.
But they might be remembered well. I don't know. I would actually be interested to see.
I would love to see players today using social media or blogs demanding more playing time. Like at the college level, I think things would get out of hand very quickly if that became the trend.
That's the way it's trending, dude. It's definitely going power to the player.
Do you see the Pac? You see the Pac-12?
I saw the Pac-12.
What do you think about that? So for those that don't know, the Pac-12 players, supposedly a bunch of them have come together, and they're basically making demands. Everything from they want safer conditions during coronavirus to they want a revenue split with the conference. They want lifetime health care, kind of all these pretty material demands. What's your take on that?
I think power to the player, and I think that that's the way it's trending. That's the way it's gonna be. Whether the NCAA is going to be with it or not, or these conferences are going to, of course, they're going to meet it with resistance. And I don't know, I'm not super informed on the exact details of what Pac-12 guys are asking for, but it is going to be the way of power to the player, and not just necessarily in college. I mean, college is where they're probably the most, they have the most opportunity for growth, but even in the like professional ranks, I remember watching, I think it was last year when it seems like 20 years ago with everything that's going on, but I think it was last year, Antonio Brown was put out that video of John Gruden calling him, and he was at his house, and it was like he was releasing footage that behind the scenes footage that, wasn't in part of the HBO show or anything. It was just a intimate call that he had with John Gruden. And he put it out for the world to see, and John Gruden, I don't think, knew about it, or maybe he cleared it with him after. But I remember watching that and being like, one, this is so interesting. It's captivating because you're seeing these people that you really care about operate basically behind closed doors. But what's stopping anyone from doing this, not necessarily in just exposing conversations, but just in like really opening the door and letting people in? I keep track of it. I'm watching right now, JaVale McGee from the Lakers is doing a vlog inside the bubble. He's basically he's filming himself. I mean, it's pretty crude, not in the sense of like language or anything, but crude in the sense of how it's made. But he's basically following day-to-day life with the Lakers, and he's getting on the bus, and you see LeBron James in the back of the bus listening to music. It's like, that's so easy for athletes of any level to capture and release, and people are going to be so interested in that content. And it's something that we've really never seen, which is behind the scenes without these big hulking cameras, which change behaviors. I do content for, for work. And a lot of the stuff we've done in the past has been like, getting reactions out of people or talking to people on the street or even like hidden camera stuff. And I always ask the producer or whoever's shooting it, let's get a smaller camera, because these big cameras change your behavior in an instant. We have these huge freaking things that sit on shoulders, and we got these audio booms, and all of a sudden people start acting different. But if you can have these little cameras, which now are just the iPhone or whatever, you capture real life. It's like exactly how people are. And for players to have the iPhone and to have the editing ability, or to have, a blog might even be outdated in terms of writing for players. I don't know. You have to have some good writers, I guess. But
have you seen Mateus, I think is how you pronounce his name, from the 76ers? He's been doing the same thing, and he started on YouTube maybe 2-3 weeks ago. He's already got almost 1 million subscribers. Each video that he's released, he's done like 6 or 7 of them now. He's gotten 1 million views on each one, I think, now.
No, I haven't seen him. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I don't see what's stopping these guys from – because then what happens is then all of a sudden you start seeing from their perspective. You start seeing from the NBA players' perspective, which we don't necessarily feel bad for NBA players and pro athletes. But, okay, then an NCAA athlete does this, a college football player, and you start seeing the day-to-day in his life. And then all of a sudden you start really seeing from his perspective. And then all of a sudden you really relate to him. And then when they start making demands, or when they start asking for basically just to be treated fairly and be compensated fairly, then you start being like, hey, this guy's right. I see what he's saying. He's totally right. And right now, what the NCAA has done a really effective job doing, whether it's intentional or unintentional, and I think it's intentional, and it's also these college programs, is hushing the players, where they're the only ones getting to put their viewpoints and their perspective out. And so, of course, the public is just now starting to come around to the idea that maybe this is really unfair. And the more content these athletes are able to do, and the more people are able to relate to them, whether it's just social media, even if it's not a vlog, the quicker this is going to change, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that you got kind of 2 different things here, right? One is The Last Dance, if you watch that, right, with Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. Like, they filmed all of that behind the scenes content and held it for 15, 20 years, and then they all released it at once. But it was very cut up. It was approved by Michael. It was kind of ESPN's version of that history. I think what you're talking about is getting access to that information almost in real time. And the pro players are interesting. I completely agree. It's going to happen at the college level, but you can almost go a step further. And what stops a player from, after a game, videoing, let's say, the athletic training room, right? And like, look at how much pain some of these players are in after the game's over. And you can easily see, some guy in a football stadium does that 2 or 3 games in a row, cuts it together and says, hey, you want to know why we want, lifetime health insurance? Here's the, the carnage after the game's over. And look, I don't think that players, necessarily want to go out and be like investigative journalists or anything like that. But I do think that they've got more power in their hands now, right? They can do certain things that they previously weren't able to do, which if they're smart, they can use to their advantage.
That's exactly what I think. That's exactly what I'm saying too. And trust me, these coaches know, and the athletic directors know, and the people who are, it's in their interest to make sure that it doesn't happen. They know how much power is in the players' hands. And it's really kind of, a lot of, I know coaches, I remember Dabo Sweeney a couple years ago was like, no Twitter during the season. That's not so the players are focused. I mean, he wants them to be focused. The reason there's no Twitter during the season is he doesn't want anything getting out, someone to say something stupid, bulletin board material for another team, or even worse, some type of violation the NCAA is going to get Clemson on. They're looking out for themselves. And trust me, even when I was at Carolina, Fedora was the coach during whenever I was doing on my website and my content, was very receptive to me making content. He was very okay with it and encouraged it in a lot of ways. But with that being said, there were definitely still conversations that I had with my quarterback coach and other, it was just well known as like, hey, if you're going to be doing this and you're going to be posting, you have a responsibility not just to, yeah, you can try and make people laugh and try to be, you know, the funny guy on the side, whatever. But also, this is very serious, and you need to be careful what you're posting. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of power there, and I think the players are starting to come around to that.
Yeah, and the part to me that's so interesting about the Pac-12 thing is there's multiple teams, right? This isn't just a couple of guys who are going, quote unquote, rogue from one team. They've actually gone and they're organizing with people across the conference. And all they've done really is they've just made a demand, right? Which sounds like it's more of like they sent a letter or something like that. What you're talking about is when you stop talking to the NCAA and you start talking directly to the people, you could see very quickly this going from, hey, the NCAA is cool with you using your image and likeness, which, when you or I were in college wasn't allowed, to now literally the public pressure being like, why aren't you paying these kids? Right. And if you go back to, what was it? The Ohio State guys who like sold their cleats or something, right? You know what I mean? And they were getting in trouble for it. And it was like, look, their argument basically was, or who actually I think had the best argument was Arian Foster, right? I think he went to Tennessee, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And when he was in the NFL, he came out and he said, I went into the stadium. I had like, a record day or whatever. Everyone's chanting my name. I went home, opened my refrigerator. I had no food. And the quote he gave was, I called the coach and I said, hey, coach, you better bring me 100 tacos or I'm going to do something crazy. Right. And it's like, look, is he right in that situation? Probably not. But he's like, but the coach brought me the tacos. Right. And so you kind of get in this world of like, those are the stories that people previously were only comfortable saying once they were in the NFL, once they had no repercussions. Right. But I think that now with social media and content, people are going to start sharing those stories in real time.
Right. You don't want to air out your coaches. Like that's a violation. The coach not allowed to do that. So, like when I was at Carolina, it was Coach Fedora and those guys. Like I like the coaches. I'm not trying to do anything that's going to affect them negatively. That's their job. They have families there. They put in a lot of time. Most of them really care about the players. So, you don't want to get other people in trouble just because you're trying to, expose a flaw in the system. And that goes for more than just college football, but it's kind of a balance of how do you get change without throwing other people under the bus and hurting what they got going on.
For sure. Talk to me about Barstool. Obviously, you've gone from college quarterback to Barstool and create some of the most hilarious content I've ever seen. You're talking earlier kind of like the man on the street or going to college campuses, during football season and stuff. Like, where do all these ideas come from? And kind of what's that process look like from going from, I've got an idea to actually getting something approved and published?
So this is what I think is interesting about Barstool for people who don't know is that Barstool was founded by Dave Portnoy, who has now become, he's pretty much like a national celebrity. Pretty much everyone knows him, whatever you feel about him, he's known. So he started this company and he basically just started it as he wanted it to be for the common man, by the common man, about sports talk. And he's grown it, but along the way, as he's hired new talent. And I was one of now, when we look at it now, I was like the 13th employee. So I was early on. I was before we got bought, but he still had been growing it a long time before I came into the picture. And every time he picks up someone new that he thinks is good for Barstool, he is not overlording them. Basically, he's saying, hey, I think that you could make a valuable contribution to Barstool Sports. And what I want from you is I want you to go out and I want you to create content and I want you to publish content. And whether it's writing or it's a blog or now podcast or TikTok, or I guess we might be moving to Triller, it sounds like, but whatever, I want you to go do your thing. And then Dave's running the company, but he's not like, CEO guy all the time. He's, as you can see, he's making content as well. So it's like almost a sense of like, yeah, go do your thing. Like go for it. And then whatever you come up with and put out, great. He's not checking anyone's work before it goes out. There's no editorial process. I think there might be now for like some of the really new guys because it has gotten so big. But there was never any point in my entire career where Dave was like approving ideas after I came to him. Of course, every once in a while he'll have an idea for me. Or if there's something like it's a really expensive travel, I'll run it, hey, Dave, is this okay? But with that being said, he's never said no. In my entire career at Barstool, which is, 5 years now, he's never said no. He's like the best boss. And I think it's the only way Barstool works how it does is that it's complete creative freedom. And it's like everyone's their own boss. And we have this little world where you can basically be as successful as you want to be and put out as much content as you want, or you can kind of hide in the weeds and you'll probably still get paid every 2 weeks because Dave's just not paying attention. He's focused on making content himself. And so, people don't know what to feel about Barstool because, they maybe say they like Dave, but they don't like, someone else, or they like Big Cat, but they don't like Dave. And they're like, I don't understand. Where is the company line on Barstool? What is the main point they're trying to get across? And the fact of the matter is there is no editorial point. It's just a bunch of different people who are all doing their own thing with basically no oversight. And that's why it's kind of Wild Wild West. There's no oversight.
But that's what makes it fun, right?
That's what makes it fun.
Yeah. What do you feel like in terms of that process? Like, what has it allowed you to do that maybe you couldn't have done elsewhere? So, like one or two, segments or pieces of content that you've done where you're like, I know that I could have never done this anywhere else. Only at Barstool could I have done this.
I mean, almost exclusively everything I do.
I figured that's what you were gonna say.
Yeah. I mean, I've done it all. I've done. We've done things that are definitely not, PG. We've done, we've done like the porn convention, and we've shot out and the Bunny Ranch. What was that for? Out there in Las Vegas, where there's prostitution is legal, stuff like that, which is kind of more like sultry stuff, but also just how we involve with sports, and we get in there and we do stuff that's not. I remember I went to Missouri last year, and one of the things we did is like I covered like my hydration tests, my pee test, and it's like just showing yourself pee. I wasn't showing like nudity, but just like I videoed myself peeing into a little jar. Recently, I sent my poop off to New Mexico, and we talked about that. So there's just no everything. The answer is everything.
So when you're thinking of this stuff, and I watch pretty much everything, first of all, it's hilarious, right? It's entertaining. And I think part of the point of Barstool is to make people laugh. And Dave and many others have said it multiple times, like just to give people a break from life, right? And I think that you guys are obviously doing a great job of that. How do you personally come up with these ideas? Like peeing in a cup, sending your poop somewhere, going to the porn convention,
I probably should like do more context on peeing in a cup and sending my poop, because that just sounds, without context, that sounds wild. So dude, so it really is like, I kind of think of myself, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I kind of think of myself as just like working for myself. I work for Barstool and I work for the bigger company, and it's really out of just loyalty to Dave, because he really took a chance on hiring me fresh out of college, and he's just been like the best boss and really partner, because he's really a creative partner, because it's like he's not bossing me around, which I appreciate, and he's like gained a lot of loyalty from me just by the fact that he kind of like stays out of the way, and he is very supportive, but he's not telling me what to do. And as a creative person, and as just a creative for my profession, I think it's the only way it would work. And so I'm loyal to him and definitely to the brand, because that's what's given me the opportunities. But I kind of feel like my own boss, in the sense of I wake up every day and I make my own schedule. For the most part, I do radio every day. But besides that, I decide what I'm going to do. I decide what I'm going to work on. I decide where my priorities are. I decide what's important for me to post on, how many times I'm going to post. Every single decision that I make on my own volition. And so that's kind of it's kind of the feeling I wake up with is almost like I'm a entrepreneur, in the sense of growing my own brand. And so when I'm making these decisions, you just talk about what am I gonna what are you going to work on or what I'm going to do, or how do these videos come to light? A lot of them are just like, they just fit in with what I'm trying to, at the moment, like my almost, it sounds corny and it's not really how I think of it, but like a business initiative. Like, what am I trying to do right now? And then it's like, okay, what is the content that aligns with that?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. How has that changed in terms of quarantine? Obviously, people were just sitting at home. How did that affect you as you made some of the content?
I went back to North Carolina. I saw everything was getting bad in New York. I kind of saw the writing on the wall. So there was like this weird text that was going around. I think you probably got it like a couple times. It was about some dude had like an uncle who sat in on a lunch where Cuomo was at, and they were talking about shutting down the bridges and tunnels.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. So I got that text like 6 times, and I was like, all right, well, I'm getting out of here. And so I rented a car for a week in advance. I was like, if this everything keeps progressing at the rate it's progressing, a week from now, I'm going to be wanting to get out of here. And I'm worried all the cars are going to get rented up. So I rented a car for a week in advance. And sure enough, a week later, they didn't shut down the bridges and tunnels, but it was getting worse. And so I just took that car and I drove to North Carolina. And then I got to North Carolina, and all my neighbors saw me, and they're like, so I was with my parents again, and they're like, wait, don't you live in New York City? Because this was like the worst thing in the world to have someone from New York City come to your neighborhood. But anyways, I was back in North Carolina, and I did what I could. I picked up golf, which is like now that's pretty much exclusively what I'm doing is golf.
I see the Strokes hat on, and there's a lot of people asking if you're going to join the PGA.
Yeah, that's my goal. So what happened to me is I went back home to North Carolina. Obviously, one of the only things to do right now is play golf. I'm hanging out with some of my boys. We're actually in Chapel Hill. And every time my whole life people ask me if I want to play golf, I always say, I never played before, and I don't want to hold you guys up. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to go out there and then it's my first time. You guys know how to play. I'm spraying balls everywhere. I don't know the rules. And then all of a sudden your whole golf experience is about helping me learn how to play. So every time I've been asked my whole life, I've been like, thanks, but no thanks. I don't want to ruin your time. So I said this time, but these are like my best friends. And they're like, dude, come on, like, shut up. You can drink some beers and we'll come and let's play golf. First time ever playing, and I immediately fell in love with it. I was like, dude, this is the best sport ever. This is the best sport of all time. You're outside, you're with your friends. It's not super physically demanding, although I have got hurt multiple times since I started playing. You can take it as seriously as you want to take it. It's just a beautiful game. It's mental. I mean, I was like, oh, this is my calling in life. And I'm 27, but I just figured out that this is actually what I'm supposed to do with my life is be a golfer. And so on that day, that very day, my first time ever playing, and I wasn't good. I wasn't like, oh, you're a natural, nothing like that. I just fell in love with it. And I said, my calling in life is to be on the golf course every day and and the way that you do that is either, Bitcoin goes to 45 trillion, I can do whatever I want, or you become a professional golfer. So I said, okay, I'm going to become a professional golfer because that is my calling. It's a gut feeling. I'm 27. I know I have an uphill battle, but I'm going to be 10 years from now on the PGA Tour. And that's what I made that decision. I put that announcement out. That was probably 2 months ago. And since then, that's what I've been working on almost exclusively is to go to the PGA Tour.
So when you're in North Carolina, it's much easier. There's golf courses everywhere, and you can just get in your car, drive there. In New York City, there's not exactly a lot of golf courses everywhere. So how do you continue that journey to the PGA Tour in New York City?
Well, dude, I kept getting hurt at the beginning.
How do
So
you get hurt playing? You got to explain for those that don't know. How do you get hurt playing?
I don't know. I mean, that's what I said too. When you think about golf, especially coming from like football background, you think about it's just like a leisurely, easy game that old men play. So trust me, I was more surprised than anybody, but I hadn't been doing anything. I was in content creator shape. I wasn't playing sports. I wasn't doing anything. So you go out there, it's a pretty athletic movement if you want to do it right. Or I wasn't even doing it right. I was trying to, but a swing of a golf club is a lot of like stability in your core, a lot of hips. And if you don't have those muscles ready, you'll find out you'll get pretty sore and you might even get hurt. But here's the real issue. Once I decided to go pro, and people listening to this are like, is he serious? Does he really think he can go pro? He can't go pro. The answer is yeah, I am being serious. So whenever and we can talk more about why I'm serious if you want, but when I first started, I was like, okay, so I know this is going to take work. It doesn't just happen. So I immediately, after starting playing one day, I think I started on like a Saturday, and on Monday, I was like, okay, let's start the golf career. And so I think I was putting in like 6 to 8 hours of golf a day. And so basically I went from 0 to 100. And so that's how I got hurt. It wasn't necessarily just like 18 holes with my buddies. Like I was like playing way too much. My body was not even close to being ready. And I just hit the accelerator too fast. And so then I ended up pulling a muscle in my back. I had some really bad tendonitis in my knees. And then to top it all off, dude, one night I came home from one of these golf trips, and my mom, because I was staying at my parents' house for coronavirus, she changed the sheets while I was out. So, and that's a good mom move. And I'm not hating on my mom. I'm very appreciative of my mom. She changed my sheets. They needed to be changed. I appreciate that. I'm a grown man. I can handle my own, but she would do me a favor. So I go in and she put clean sheets down the bed. So I go in to get in bed that night, and I took a melatonin right before I went to bed because I was like, I'm trying to get some sleep fast. I get in the bed. She tucked the sheets so tight under the bottom of the bed. Like, you ever been to a hotel and the sheets are super tight at the bottom of the bed?
Yeah, you're doing you're like fighting with the sheets to get them untucked.
It was, I don't know if the blanket was too long, if the sheet was too long. It was almost like she tucked it all the way in from the bottom of the bed and then all the way back, all the way to the top. I couldn't get these things out. So eventually I just went to sleep and my toes were cranked back. Literally like this. They were cranked under the sheets. And all night they were cranked, but the melatonin, I passed out. I wake up in the middle of the night in excruciating pain. I got turf toe from my mom's sheets. And I'm not kidding. I got actual turf toe because my thing was pulled back for so long. And so I had to deal with turf toe. I mean, it's just been a myriad of terrible issues. So,
when you reach the PGA Tour, no one's going to be able to say it wasn't a journey. You didn't work hard for this.
No one's going to be able to say that. It's going to be a modern miracle if I haven't swung a golf club in over a month.
So what are you going to do in New York?
So I'm back here now, and I have a plan to. There's a course, a 9-hole course in New Jersey. It's like 25 minutes from me. That I've worked it out with them. That they're going to let me come out there, and my plan is every day I'm going to go out in the morning. I'm going to play my 18 holes of on-course experience. I'll go in. I do a radio show every day at 1 o'clock, the Yak on Sirius XM for Barstool with a bunch of other great guys. And then after that, there's another place called Golf and Body. And it is it's a membership-only club in New York City. It's very nice, very luxurious. They reached out to me and they worked it out for me because I can't pay it. It's a very expensive place. So I can't personally front the bill. So they're letting me get in kind of, just out of good faith, I guess. And they're just being nice guys. So they're letting me go there for free. But
when you make it to the PGA Tour, they're going to be able to say, they're going to say, hey, we raised
That's what they said. I said, hey, man. So part of my, I told you I'll make my own boss, whatever. Part of my thing with Barstool is that I can't advertise. I can't just advertise for whoever. So I told Golf and Body, I was like, I can't advertise for you guys. They're like, no, all we want is whenever you go pro, just say that you came to Golf and Body. I was like, done. So anyways, in the afternoon, I'll go there and they have everything. They have hitting bays. They have PGA professional instructors. They have putting greens. They have a workout facility that hopefully whenever the gym is open back up, I can utilize. And they have locker rooms and everything. So it's like a full indoor golf place. It's honestly not ideal for someone who's trying to go pro because you really want to be out on the course. But for New York City, it's the best possible way to continue to be good at golf, especially during the winter, which is I'm not going to be outside here. So I have
So
8 hours a day I could put into golf.
all right. So there's a lot of people who watch this and say, Caleb is always joking around, but I think he's serious. And the question then is, why is he serious about this?
So, dude, it's really like my whole life. I'm still new. I got to figure out a better way to answer this question because I'm getting asked a lot. And I haven't nailed my answer. But really, the truth is that when I play golf that day, and this sounds maybe stupid, but when I play golf that day and I was thinking about it, I had this like emotional, physical, when I had it was like this idea is like, I should go pro. I should like do this with my life. And then all of a sudden, like all these mechanisms inside me and my brain starts churning. And then everything was like, it just made sense. It was like a gut feeling. It was a literal gut feeling. And then, I'm thinking about it and all of a sudden the ideas start flowing. If you ever had an idea and then all of a sudden you might be driving in the car and you have an idea, whether it's about your work or whatever. And then all of a sudden that idea and you're like, oh my God, this is great. And then I could do this and then I could do this. And so I had that with golf. It was like a gut feeling that was like, it makes sense because I love obviously I have an athletic background. I love the athletic part of it. I love the competition part of it. I love the camaraderie part of it. I love the fact that it's outside and it's very like you feel like you're kind of in nature even though you're not, which is perfect for me because I, in theory, like nature. But then when I'm actually like back in North Carolina and we go like hiking and stuff, I'm like, there's like too many bugs out here, So golf is like the perfect balance of nature for me. You get off your phone, which is a big thing for me because I'm always on my phone for work. So to be able to get off the phone. So just lifestyle wise, it worked for me. And then I was like, I can do this for my work. Like I'm a content creator. There's a lot of golf space to be had for making content. I can do this and still do a good job at my work for Barstool. And this is something where, I can basically continue on the path I'm on, but also start a new journey. And I'm like, I'm 27. This might take me 10, say it takes me 20 years. Maybe tell me it takes 23 years. I think at 50, you can play on the senior tour. Say I don't get on any tours until I'm a senior. I know 50-year-olds, like they're relatively still young, especially ones who are like going for their dreams and like doing stuff. Like it seems at 27, thinking about being 50 seems so far off. But then I know these 50-year-olds who are like totally young and totally like going for it and in good shape. I'm like, what do I want to do at 47? Do I still want to be going to college campuses? And like, I mean, these videos are good, but I am going to get aged out of some of it. Isn't it good to be like on the PGA tour or on the senior tour at 50? Like, isn't that a good lifestyle that I could be working towards while maintaining my goals here? And I think also it came back to just my innate what I'm good at. And I think that's something I've really been focusing on a lot recently is trying to just focus in on things that I'm really good at and put my attention there. Because I know that from my experience, what I put my attention on, I get better at. And what I focus on improves. But, I've also put my attention and focused on things that I'm not inherently good at or I'm not naturally great at. And so then I watch those things go from bad to average, and I'm not really seeing a huge value add to my life. One thing that I don't think I'm that good at that I do every day is radio. I do it every day, and I wouldn't do it, but I like the guys so much on the show that I do with. It's like Big Cat and Roan and KB, Nick, and Brandon Walker are the guys. And it's just like a good group of guys that I feel like I'm hanging out with my friends.
Why do you feel like you're not good at it?
It's just not natural to me. I'm not like I'm not like a take artist, like people who are like, they can just give you like a fire take about anything just right off the top of their head. It's just not it's not my thing. And it's just not, I know that about myself. I'm more like, I like to like think of like I don't want to say bigger ideas, but like, something that might take a little bit more time, or like a video idea that's kind of more like convoluted and has more layers to it. That's what I'm good at. So anyways, long-winded way of saying, I do that just because I love the guys and they're part of and they're just like my friends. But anything else that I do and I'm putting my attention on, I'm really trying to make sure that I have a chance of being like the best at it, or like one of the best at it. And that goes for videos that I'm making, but also for golf. It's my personality. It's a kind of like a thinking game. It is some athleticism. I'm not like the most, I play college football, but I'm not really like the most athletic guy of all time. I have like enough athleticism. The thing that got me far in football was the mental side of the game, and I was a hard worker. I was really good at the mental side of the game, and I was a really hard worker. I see those qualities. I'm above the threshold for golf, so I'm athletic enough to be an elite player, but I'm not super athletic. And then the mental side, though, I think I could really thrive, and I think I could really thrive in the hard working side, which I know I'm a hard worker. So anyways, it aligns for me with what I'm inherently good at. And I want to start doing things that are sustainable, one, but also two, that I can, if I do put my attention and my focus on it, then I can really become really good at it. You know what I'm saying?
So before we talk about Bitcoin, where are we starting on the golf side? Like, what are you shooting when you go for 18 holes right now? And then what do
I'm
we got to get to?
121. So
121?
here's my hat right here, 51 strokes. I have to lose 51 strokes to be a scratch player. That's what the 51 strokes is all about. So my goal is June 18th next year. I want to be scratch. Now, I didn't foresee being sidelined for 2 months of that 12 months with injuries. So maybe that's going to be hard. It was going to be hard to begin with, but I said, if I can't get to scratch in 1 year, I mean, this is a far off goal. I'm not an idiot. I know what it's to be in the PGA. That's tough. So if I can't show some type of inherent ability to play and hard work that it takes and skill level to get to scratch in a year, which is almost impossible, but you got to remember I'm playing a lot, then maybe I ain't cut out for golf as much as I thought I was. So that was my goal. I do need to get back playing. Maybe I'll give myself like a breakfast ball on 1 or 2 months, but 121 is my score. My goal is to be I want to be a scratch player by June 18th, 2021. And then 4 years after that, I want to be on some type of tour. And then I'm going to give myself 5 years from there to go be on the PGA tour. That puts me at a PGA player at 37 years old, which is possible. There are plenty of 37 and up players on the PGA tour.
So what's the best score you shot so far?
121.
Okay, so 121's the best, and now we got to go.
It's the only time I've ever kept score.
Oh, okay. All right. That's fair. Look, hey.
You got to keep in mind, I'm new, dude. I've only kept score because I'm so bad that when I go out and play, I'm not keeping score because it hurts my morale.
So I'm going to give you you're a better man than me, because the only golf where I've ever kept score is like actually tried to keep scores. We used to play something called speed golf, which everyone plays normal golf. They count the number of strokes, right? And so, par 3, whatever. What we did a couple of times in high school is we would play speed golf, which is when you tee off from the tee box, the timer starts. And you can run all over the course, do whatever. It doesn't matter how many strokes. It's how long does it take from when you tee off to you put the ball in. But the only difference or the only caveat to that is when you tee off, you've got to finish a beer before you put the ball in. So every hole is 1 beer and it's timed rather than strokes.
Yeah.
Absolute madness by about hole 6 or 7. We used to go to one of these executive par 3 courses that's 9 holes or whatever.
Yeah.
Complete madness by the time you get about halfway through.
Yeah, beer. The golfing is also it's an easy way to get carried away with the drinking. It's you find it easy way. We played, so the weekend I hurt my back, we were in Pinehurst. We have some golf stuff going on. Barstool Classic is at Pinehurst, so I was there. And over the course of the weekend, I get in on Friday, and we played. I played 36 holes on Friday. I got in. My first tee time was at 1, right? Played 18, at 1, and then we got finished around 5 or something, and we're walking back off the course, and we're like, dude, we really want to play again. Found some random dudes that we had never met. Like, you guys want to, if I can get us a tee time, because Pinehurst was like helping us out. I was like, well, you guys would play with us? Played 36 on Friday. The next day, I played 45 on Saturday. And the point here is, at the 45 holes, you can imagine the drinking, it gets intense. And then, and I think we played whatever the remainder is. We played 97 holes for the whole weekend. And, dude, I don't know if my body hurt more or my brain, dude, from it's an easy way to get carried away. I think that's why a lot of guys like it. I think 50% of golfers are actually, they just like drinking.
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Talk to me about Bitcoin. And the context here is Marty Bent, which many people in the Bitcoin community will know, used to work at Barstool, and he red pilled a good number of people at Barstool.
Yes.
You were one of them. So tell us kind of like, what was the first time you ever heard of Bitcoin? What were those conversations like Marty like as well?
Well, first of all, you're the first person to ever say, tell me what you think about Bitcoin, because I'm used to people saying, Caleb, shut up about Bitcoin. Caleb, shut up. We don't care. We get it. We know. So Marty was hired at Barstool. We called him, I know him as Bitcoin Marty. You know him as Marcus Dent. I know him as Bitcoin Marty. Bitcoin Marty got hired at Barstool literally as he had like some type of fake job that we were paying him for on paper. His job was the crypto guy, because Dave was getting into crypto. And we had another guy named Light Switch Lou, he's also doesn't work at Barstool anymore, who's the one who knew Marty and brought him in. He was in crypto. And then at Barstool, Marty got me in the crypto, maybe a few other guys. And I had like the most classic story getting into Bitcoin, because Marty comes along. I meet him. I'm like, what's this guy's deal? Oh, this is Bitcoin Marty. Well, what's Bitcoin? He starts telling me about Bitcoin. I'm like, all right, I'll throw a few bucks at it. Cool. Well, then it was 2017 in the fall. And so I throw like, whatever, $100 at Bitcoin. All of a sudden, my $100 is, $150. Pretty quick, like within a week or something. It was like right when it was going off. So I was like, oh, this is like, I got to get on this train now. Like this train is leaving the station, and I have to put everything I own into Bitcoin. So this is my personality. You can already tell by going all the way on golf. I take all my money that I have, all of it. Here's all the money I have, and I put it in Bitcoin. Every single dollar that I had to my name. That wasn't tied up in something else. Well, then Bitcoin starts kind of slowing down, right? It didn't crash, but it was like slowing down. And I'm not talking about over the course of months. I mean, like a couple of days it was slowing down. And I wasn't getting that hit. I was like, the hit of adrenaline when it was going up. I was like watching coinmarketcap.com, and all of a sudden I'm seeing Bitcoin, plus 0.04 growth, and then I'm seeing all these other coins go 32%, 25%, whatever. So I asked Marty. I say, Bitcoin Marty, what's the deal with these other coins? Why are they going up so much? Are they going to be the big ones? And I don't know at this point. He's given me the speech about what cryptocurrency is, what blockchain technology is, what a decentralized currency could mean for humanity. And all at this point I'm thinking about is the green plus however much percent. And he says, Caleb, dude, do not go into these altcoins. He's like, if I can give you any piece of advice, it would be hold your Bitcoin. Do not go into these altcoins. If you want to go into the altcoins, this Monero, it might have some value because it's, of its secret nature, and it's still, whatever. He's like, but I wouldn't even, he's like, if you want to put some money in that, okay, if you want to diversify. But he's like, I'm telling you, man, these altcoins ain't where it's at. So I said, all right, Bitcoin Marty. I said, you've got me far enough. I'm done taking your advice. You got me into Bitcoin. I've used you and your brain. Caleb's brain's taking over now. So I put all the money that was in Bitcoin, move it to the altcoins, right? And I'm not talking about like the altcoins that are, at first it was like Ripple and Ethereum. Well, then those get boring, and then you see the ones that are hitting 300%. So before you know it, I get carried away. I got all my money's tied up in these random, and I've got the ones that you have to get a download like software onto your computer just so you can get onto the exchange where they hold this coin. I was in it was like Q Cash, something that was in China, and it was like you had to download their service. I think it was called like Liquid. It has since like went out of business, and they sent an email like, if you had money here, sorry, you can no longer access it. Anyways, but all you need to know is that I've moved my money over here. Bitcoin tanks. Obviously, the altcoins tank even worse. I lost everything. I lost every dollar of everything that I had. Boom, poof, out the window, cryptocurrency. And that's how I got into Bitcoin.
All right. You're still here though. So explain
Right.
what happens after you lose everything.
I lose everything, and I have to laugh at myself because I'm like, I'm an idiot, proven time and time again, idiot. Never cease to amaze myself, idiot. Then it goes on. Bitcoin kind of goes down. I can't remember what it was at the time. I want to say it was like 4,000 or something low. And so Bitcoin Marty, he's popular at Barstool whenever Bitcoin was going up, because I think Dave had bought some, Big Cat bought some. But then Bitcoin crashes. I don't think anyone's going to say it to his face, but you kind of have a little bit of like, this guy got everyone on Bitcoin. We all lost all our money. And anyway, he ended up leaving. But I love Marty. So, and it wasn't, he wasn't fired because of Bitcoin. I think he left on his own volition. I think he took another job. But everyone, it was like, freaking Bitcoin Marty lost us all this money. So probably a year later, I was like, or maybe even 6 months later, I was like, let's go get a beer and let's hang out because I haven't seen you. I miss you. So we're talking. I'm like, so what's going on with Bitcoin, dude? Like, tell me what you think now. And he talked to me about, one, how he had always felt the same thing about it. His thoughts hadn't changed. But then he's really talking to me about some of the deeper issues with Bitcoin and some of what he believes are some of the progresses like society could make from adopting Bitcoin. And he gave me some kind of materials I could look at and look more into. And for the first time ever, he told me about kind of the stages of currency that the United States has went through over the years, and how basically right now we're not backed up by anything. And he really kind of like put some real thoughts in my mind that were outside of just the numbers going up. And he kind of gave me some stuff to look at. So I go and I look at it, and I'm doing more research. And so I start buying in a little bit, at low. And I'm like, I kind of do still think it is something. And then I kind of just slowly getting in, kind of watching it go up. And then I'm really thinking more about it. And I know your show, and this is why I'm a fan of your show, is you have experts come on and they have so much extensive knowledge of what's happening. That's not me, but I do think I have a little bit of knowledge about, or at least I have a feel. It's more of a feel thing of what's popular and trends and things that are that have legs, with what's coming up. Whether it's like we got on TikTok really early, not really, really early, but like once we saw it, we were on TikTok. And I say me and another guy who I do a thinker account with, or a daily fact account, or something like TikTok, or even like a new band. You see something like this has legs. Something about it is exciting, and it makes sense on a lot of levels. And I could see this being big. That's kind of how I felt about Bitcoin still, and I still do to this day. And it's the main reason why I'm in it, is because I look at Bitcoin and I say, there's obviously some issues here. It's obviously very speculative, but when you look at the next generation of kids, I have a 10-year-old, 10 years younger than me brother, and his world is so different than mine with technology and all of their relationships. My little brother's really good about it, getting with his friends, being with them on a personal level, but I see his friends too. It's all phone. Everything's phone. And I'm kind of in the generation where, or my age group is, it's a lot of phone, but there's also a lot of personal interaction. 10 years younger than me, it's almost 90% phone. They talk to each other on Snapchat in the same room, or everything that's happening is digital. 10 years younger than that, I mean, they have no chance of human to human interaction how we used to do it. So I'm thinking about, all right, these kids, are they going to think about, when they think about money or they think about an asset? Like, I personally, and I don't know up from down, so don't take my word for it. I'm just telling you what I think. Um, I kind of think of Bitcoin has more legs as an asset than it does as a currency, just for the reason that when you tell, if I told my little brother about the value of gold, it would be the actual gold. It's like hard to get. It's like, what do you get a gold bar? It doesn't really make sense. It's not like Apple. It's not intuitive. It's like you have to do more explaining to explain to someone, this is gold, this is how you get it, this is why it's valuable, than you would have to do for Bitcoin. And pretty much at the end of the day, you're coming back to the same argument of why is gold valuable? If I really had to explain to my little brother or someone who's younger than him, I would eventually have to say, well, it's basically just valuable because everyone else says it is. You know, that's the same thing for Bitcoin, because there is no inherent value of, holding a bar, or I think it just for people who are in the digital age, whereas people now and older than me probably think about, well, it's just digital, so it's really not there. If it's ethereal, it's floating in the air, it doesn't make sense. It's not real. It's not grounded in real life. My take is that life grounded in real life is disappearing very quickly. And I think 10 years from now, 15 years from now, the amount of life that's happening as we understand it in actual, it's not that there's a digital world over here on the right, and then everything that is in the digital world is just a reflection of what's happening in our actual reality. I think that the reality of what's actually happening and what actually matters is going to be almost entirely in the digital world. For example, right now, you look at like a Twitter. Twitter is a social media that you kind of report back on your thoughts about what's happening in our material world or in our reality. But then you look at something like, which I think Twitter's on the way out. I do. I hate Twitter. It's getting so terrible. I get on it because of work. If it wasn't for work, I wouldn't even be on Twitter. But TikTok, I don't know where it's heading. It looks like it's kind of where with President Trump right now. But TikTok, it's not a reflection of what's going on in the real world. It is its own world. TikTok is its own entire world, similar to YouTube. YouTube is, you go into YouTube and it's like that is its own reality. It's not a report back necessarily on what's happening in the real world. So I'm just thinking about the future. I see it as that we're going to be living inside the YouTube and the TikToks and just the internet sphere. That is going to be the basis of our reality. And it makes so much more sense intuitively to have something that's a store of value like Bitcoin that exists and works with that world, opposed to a gold that, I'm not saying gold's not going to be valuable, but it just doesn't make quite as much, I guess, intuitive sense. And that's kind of my
it's
thought.
almost like it's really interesting to hear you say this, because you're the first person I've heard articulate it this way. But I think you're dead on in that there's an entire generation of people that their default for value is in the analog world, right? And so kind of this
Yes,
idea like the digital world isn't valuable, it's not real, like you kids are crazy.
right.
But when you flip around to the youngest generations, the default is all of the values in the digital world. And so I joke all the time, in the
You said that
finance.
so much better than I did. I'm joking.
No. Listen, but I think that, the best example is like how many people see when it comes to work, like somebody like wants them to print out a piece of paper, sign it, and then like fax it or copy it back. Right. I think
Right,
there's a whole generation of people who are like, that's stupid. Just send it to me digitally. Right. And
right.
like that, like it's such a better process. And so that mentality is going to permeate into even assets and things like that. And also, what's the difference between buying a stock on an app on your phone versus buying some other asset, right? The experience is very similar. And yes, the asset itself is different, but I think that there's an entire generation of people that are growing up where maybe your dad or my dad or somebody else would call like a broker and be like, hey, can you buy XYZ, asset for me? And it was a relationship where you were talking to a human in order to get access to something. Now I don't need to talk to anybody, right? I literally just go right into the phone and I can do all kinds of things, including send you money. I can buy things. I can do all of this, never leave my couch, not have to talk to anybody. And so
Right.
naturally the assets I think that interface with that are going to be attractive, right? Because it's just a different way of growing up from a technology standpoint.
100%. You said it 10 times better than I said it, but um, it really is. The world is shifting to, where the most value, whether it's, an asset or it's a financial value, but just and I think it's kind of unfortunate because I don't necessarily know that it's right, or I don't necessarily know that it's good. But I think that just if you look at where things are trending, people are putting more and more value of what they think about themselves. What self-value is starting to align with the analog world, and value of what is important in life. Is like, what should I do today? Well, it's not necessarily. I think it's trending about what I should do today, and what if that's going to the value of my day's time, the value of my time is starting to go analog world. So it's like all value is trending in that direction. So it only makes sense that, a store of value would also live in that world. And like I said, I don't necessarily think that that's a good thing, but I do think that's where things are trending.
Yeah, and I think the part that's really interesting too is if you go back, obviously there's now the infamous video that Dave made about Bitcoin in 2017,
Which
right?
is
He's
so
literally,
good. Still
yeah,
plays.
and like the part about it is he's just so honest. He's like, I don't even know what Bitcoins are. Like, I don't, and and you can tell that whether it's Marty or somebody else has told him enough where he's got kind of pieces of it, right?
Right.
But then he's talking about like, I don't know, somebody's just got a computer and they're just mining the Bitcoins, and then they just give them.
Right.
And he's
Right.
going through this, and what you start to realize is like ultimately what's driving his interest at that exact moment is like the price is going up. And I think even he says something like, everyone's getting rich, but I'm not going to stand by and let everyone else get rich.
Right.
But now all of a sudden, as price moves, people become interested, and then some portion of those people get educated, right? And like
Right.
you pretty much outlined a perfect example where you're staring at a screen, and when things are going up 30, 40, 50, 300% or whatever,
Right.
there's just a certain portion of the population that looks and it's like, hey, I'm not going to stand by. But then once you actually understand what are these things and kind of what is the value, then it's like, oh, you know what? This makes a lot of sense. Right.
Right.
And then they kind of, then they're converted in terms of that thought process and they stick around. And so I think that like that just is a natural market cycle and the price movements are the reason why people come in. Right. And whether that's good or not, it's just a fact of life and ends up being valuable, I think, in the long run.
Yeah, the volatility is like the best PR team ever. It really is. I mean, even if it's going down, if it's a huge crash, it's like, it's great PR for Bitcoin. I 100% agree with you.
Let me ask this: in terms of when you think of investing, obviously the Bitcoin story you told us. What do you like? What else do you do? Do you think about stocks or cash or real estate? Like, how do you think about investing in general? And really from the perspective of, I'm only a couple of years older than you. I think a lot of people would look at kind of these content creators, whether they work at Barstool or elsewhere, and they kind of just write everyone off, like, oh, these millennial kids, they don't know what they're doing. Of course, they're just buying Bitcoin and Tesla. Right. It is kind of like the
Right.
joke in the circles
Right.
of older folks. How do you think about investing and for saving and kind of like, what do you do?
Um, yeah. So I can't tell you what's the best thing to do, but I can tell you what I do. Because I don't know what's probably the smartest thing to do. What I do is, I'm involved in my work 401k. I don't want to be. It's the one thing I like make myself do, and I do an IRA too. So it's like I don't want to be. I actually didn't do it for a couple of years, even though it was available to me, which is probably dumb. But because I just feel like I hate giving that up, that money, and then that investment that seems so like with the world we're living in and how fast things are going. It seems like I'm like there's no chance that this is going to be worth it. But I do it as like that's my safe play. That's like my all right. You're doing this because you're doing something in life that's safe. Um, so I do that. I do hold Bitcoin, and then I am the next thing I want to do is I do want to buy something, whether it's land a house, not a house to live in, but whether it's, I have some friends who are like starting to get into like owning properties, renting out properties. It's something I'm interested in. I'm reading about right now. I don't know enough about it to guarantee. I'm just looking at my books down here, but I'm reading about right now, trying to learn more about it. But the number one thing that I invest in and is literally I put back into myself, and just in terms of what foods I'm eating, what I'm willing to pay for physical training, or if it's mental or a class, or that's where. And I'm not saying like that's how I'm thinking about it. If you really look on paper, where does my money go? It really does go towards things that you could consider an investment, quote unquote, just back into myself, hoping that that I'm going to become a better person, and I'm going to become a little bit more equipped to deal with the circumstances of where you really make money, which is in everyday decisions. And for me in my profession, like creatively, like you can't conjure up a creative idea. It's not how it works. So you really just have to, what I've learned is you really just have to put yourself in the best position. And if it does happen that you did your part, you can only do so much. You can't force a creative idea, a good one. You really just, and for me, that just means, it's eating healthy, it's getting good sleep, it's exercising, it's just doing the stuff everyone knows, meditating. It's stuff that everyone knows, but no one wants to do. And that stuff does cost money if you want to do it right. So
For sure.
So that's honestly, if you just look at like where I'm investing, that's where my the most money goes is that kind of stuff. And then I got in on Robinhood when the stock market crashed for coronavirus. I'm pretty much out because I don't like, it makes me nervous, like what's going on in stock. Once it started, I made a ton of money because of my timing, not because I'm smart. But obviously it crashed. I went in, I made a lot of money because it's rebounded so quickly. I got out pretty much whenever it stopped making sense why things were going up. I didn't like that. Obviously Dave's still crushing, or he says he is. I don't know. But I'm out of that. I still have, and then of course, I like PIN, the company that owns us. Like I'm in PIN, so that type of thing. But really, the most of my investment is in trying to, because I think I'm going to personally make more money wise. I'm going to make more money from like doing a really good job at Barstool than I'm probably going to make from hitting some stock or something like that. If I can really do, I mean, people saw the Call Her Daddy saga, if people remember that, and they were like astounded with what these girls are making. I'm not making that type of money, but it's possible. And Dave's the type of guy who would be more than happy to pay me $1 million. Yeah, like these guys would be more than happy to pay you whatever you're worth. It's not like they're trying to rip you off. So if I can make myself valuable and I can do a really good job for them, then I'll get paid. And I'm going to make more from that than I'm ever going to make from I would say Tesla, but Tesla's going up pretty good.
I love it. No, and it makes sense, right? It's if you can increase your earning power, that is probably the number one lever you can pull, right? And so it's actually incredibly intelligent in terms of kind of what you do for a living, and if you can improve that, I think it ends up being a very smart investment. Before I wrap up, I ask everyone the same two questions. The first is, what's the most important book you've ever read?
Whoa. I would say the one that had the biggest impact on me probably was the book about Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson, because it's a great book, and because Steve Jobs was so fascinating, and just how he lived his life, and it was just that part of it. And also hit me at a time in my life where I was in college, and it was towards the end of my college run, and I'm making a lot of decisions, and I was kind of in that point of my life where, or it's one of the many points of your life, I guess, where you're very open and receptive to a book, or where a book can change your life. It's like when you're in like middle school, a song can really change your life. You know, you really start living by that Justin Timberlake song or whatever. That becomes your mantra. Well, then when you're in college, a book can really change your life. So I would say I've read a lot of, books that I love, but I would say that one really changed my perspective in a lot of ways about how I was approaching life, just because probably at what point I read it.
Love that answer. One more question, then you get to ask me one to finish up, but this one's more fun. Aliens, believer or non-believer?
Well, I don't think you have a choice anymore. You might want to change that question.
Why?
I mean, they're proven real. It's like
they're basically here, right? They basically showed up already.
They've been here. Yeah, it's like old news. It's like no one even cares. It's like that's hilarious. Yeah, I'm definitely in on aliens. First of all, I've been in on aliens before it was popular. But now, if you're not in on aliens, you're kind of like, my parents are like, just to use them as an example, I don't think they were in on aliens at all. But now I think that they're in on aliens, because I think you have to. It's like, no, we've discovered spaceships, and also here's a video of them. It's like,
it's almost like the people who were into aliens before, they were the conspiracy theorists, but now if you're not into aliens, you're a conspiracy theorist, right? It's like switched.
It's very tough. It's like, yeah. One of the things I kind of always I think about too, is like people who don't believe in evolution, right? It's like, for me, it's pretty proven. It's like, I think I read something. It's like evolution is just as proven as that H2O is water. It's like, are you going to believe if you're going to believe H2O is water, then it's like just as proven that evolution happened. But there are still, and I'm from the South, and I guess you are too. It's still not super popular. It wasn't even taught to me in school growing up. The first time I even heard about evolution was in college, right? I was studying abroad in Edinburgh, Scotland, and that's like where Charles Darwin's from and all. And I was like, oh, like I never heard about this evolution. I learned it when I was 21 years old. So anyways, the aliens are kind of the same deal it's turning out to be. It's like, no, they're here. They've been here. They might be among us now, but we don't really, we don't talk about it because it's scary.
Here's this video. No problem.
Yeah, right. So I would say yes, of course, aliens.
What one question you got for me to finish up?
Okay. Well, first of all, if we're going to flip the tables, I'll say that I'm a big fan of yours. And that's how I ended up doing this. It's not because I think you were so interested in my Bitcoin takes, but I actually reached out to you and said, hey man, I'm a big fan, because I hate Twitter. I told you that. And, it just because it's just not becoming enjoyable now. It's like, I don't even need to explain it. People who are on Twitter know what it's like, but there are a few people who I enjoy their tweets. I really get enjoyment, and they're from different worlds or different things. Dave, my boss, is one of them. I always will look and see what he's tweeting about. He's always cracks me up. And then you're another one, just because, for me, the Bitcoin world, I know you live in it. It's so far removed from me. And so I like to see what you got going on. What I love whenever you do the bull run tweet. The bull run tweet's my favorite tweet on the internet. So, yeah, so I'm a huge fan of yours. So I'll butter you up with that. And I'll ask you this. What do you think is the biggest obstacle in the way of Bitcoin becoming something that is more for the adoption of Bitcoin?
Just time. I think it's one of these things where, in my mind, it's inevitable, right? For a lot of the reasons you described earlier. And I think ultimately there's like this global game theory going on where governments are just going to print so much money, and there's going to be so many manipulated economies and currencies that eventually people are just going to start opting into something that can't be manipulated. I don't know how long that takes. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but could be 10 years away, 20 years away, whatever it is. But I think that we've got to remember kind of the rise of currencies or assets in general take a long time, right? And Bitcoin's got not only the time obstacle, but it also needs time for people to build the infrastructure and kind of all the things necessary to make it easier, right? So we can't send Bitcoin back and forth between these random string of letters and numbers, and people's hearts are like jumping out of their skin because they're scared they're going to send it to the wrong person. right? You just got to like all this stuff's got to improve, and so it just takes time. Which for humans, I think we hate that answer because it's like we want to know like what could we do, but ultimately it's just like we just got to keep doing what we're doing and be patient. And look, Bitcoin went from a third of a cent to say like $11,000 right now. Like that's insane over 10, 11 years. But I think that that's just getting started, right? And it's kind of like if you went and you looked at the internet in the early 90s, you were like, wow, I could send a message to somebody. And now you look and like you and I live 90% of our life on our phones, on the internet, talking to people and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Like I think Bitcoin's very similar.
You don't think that maybe my biggest worry is I know the government can control it, but I think governments could come together and really hurt the value, don't you think?
I think that there's probably less likelihood that they'll coordinate, but I definitely think that there will be unilateral actions. So like the United States could ban ownership, or another country could ban ownership or something like that.
Right.
They did it to gold before, right? So it's definitely an option. The only difference here, I think, is if a country, especially like a global superpower, did that. So I use the example, the United States bans ownership. I think that Russia and China and these other people who don't necessarily like the US dollar system would immediately get together and be like, hey, let's adopt the thing that the US isn't going to use. And then we can basically like break the world off onto this new system. And the US will be, at a disadvantage. So
Right.
I do think that there's like some game theory that plays out of just like the first countries to adopt it end up having an advantage. And then the first companies to like ban it end up
Right.
being at a complete disadvantage. And so what everyone seems to be doing is like nobody wants to be the first to move, right? So it's kind of like everyone's like standing in like the OK Corral at high noon, guns are at their hip. They haven't drawn them yet, but like the second one person starts shooting, everyone's going to start shooting. And so it's like this weird thing where we're just kind of like waiting to see who's the first to make a move.
Right. Can I ask you one more? I know I only get one question, but I have one more question for you. Because I asked this to Bitcoin Marty, and I wasn't happy with his answer.
All right.
Not that he answered it, but I was like, he didn't convince me, right?
Okay.
This is so from my perspective, my idiot perspective of Bitcoin, my two worries about it are, one, I worry about, I don't think that the banks and government they're cool with it now where it's at now, but if it gets big, I don't think they're going to be cool with it. And then my other worry is this, and let's see if I can do a better job of explaining this thought. So if Bitcoin comes out and it's kind of capitalistic, right? And a lot of people like Marty think that Bitcoin as our financial system could solve a lot of problems, right? So if it comes out and it's kind of like the government doesn't interfere with it, my worry is this: if that type of society exists, no matter what if it's financial or if it's back in the old days and it's men trying to compete for the women, right? What ends up happening is there's a top dog, say it's for the women back in the tribal days. There's the alpha, and then that alpha doesn't get one girl. He doesn't get the most attractive girl. He doesn't get the most attractive girl and her sister or whatever. He gets every single girl. That's how it used to work. The top dog in the society gets every woman. This is way, way back, In Bitcoin, see if I can bring this full circle here. These are a lot of my thoughts too, or like they sound idiotic, but they have good points. In Bitcoin, wouldn't the top dog, if it's unregulated, end up with not a lot of Bitcoin, with that, not a majority of Bitcoin? Wouldn't they end up, the top most richest guys in the world end up with virtually all the Bitcoin? Wouldn't it eventually flow all the way back? It would. Even people like me who have a little bit, wouldn't mine eventually flow into them? And then they basically, when it's all said and done, you have the 1% of the 1% of the 1% has 99% of all the Bitcoin.
Well, so look at the fiat legacy system. The top 1% or 0.5%, they control like 80-90% of the world's wealth. So what you just described essentially happened, in the
Right.
legacy finance
Right.
system.
Because this is, and to my point, that's what happens. And it's just natural for the top people to get richer. The rich get richer.
For sure. I think in the Bitcoin world, is it possible? Sure. But the one thing that Bitcoin has that the fiat currencies don't have is you're financially incentivized to spend your dollars, right? Because they become less valuable over time because they're being devalued through inflation. With this, that if you hold on to the Bitcoin, because it's only 21 million, it's deflationary, meaning that it'll get more valuable over time, right? Because as long as demand increases, fixed supply will increase in price. And so what ends up happening is now you're incentivized not to spend or not to be a consumer and to be a saver. And so there's this weird dynamic where in the legacy world, investors are rewarded and savers are punished. Now, the saver actually can win in a Bitcoin denominated world. And so I think that's one of the key differences. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's not going to be a disparity between, some people with lots and lots of Bitcoin and some people with not a lot of Bitcoin.
Right.
But I think that just mirrors, the system that we already have.
Right. Interesting. Okay. All right, dude.
Fair?
Well, I appreciate you letting me get 2 questions off.
Of course. Where for like the 3 people who are watching this who don't know who you are, where can they find you on the internet?
I'm sure there's more than that. But Caleb Pressley on all social media is just my name. But and I'm doing stuff for Barstool, and I'm around. Hopefully, in 10 years from now, you log on to whatever kind of virtual reality is going on, and you can watch me on the PGA Tour, hopefully.
Well, we're cheering for you, man. We'll have to do this again in the future.
Absolutely. I really appreciate it, man. Keep doing it. Keep up the hard work. Keep hodling. And just remind people whenever Bitcoin starts to go up, please remind them what to do in a bull market.